I want you to think about every piece of furniture in your home that you didn't buy new. A couch from a garage sale, a dresser from a thrift shop, a table from someone's moving sale. You brought it home. You put it in your living room, your bedroom, your child's room. You didn't think about where it had been before, who had owned it, what had happened around it. Most of the time, that's fine. In February of 1987, Alan and Deborah Tallman drove to a secondhand shop in Horicon, Wisconsin, and bought a used bunk bed for their two daughters. It was ordinary, wooden, sturdy, exactly what it looked like, a piece of children's furniture that someone had bought, used, and given away. They loaded it into the car and brought it home to their house on Larrabee Street. And from that very night, the very first night the children slept in it, nothing in that house was ever ordinary again. What followed over the next 9 months was one of the most documented, most witnessed, and most terrifying cases of object-linked paranormal activity in American history. A case so disturbing it made national television. A case so frightening that the family fled their home in the middle of a Wisconsin winter, not packing, not planning, just running, and they never went back. The bunk beds were eventually destroyed, but by then, whatever had come with them had already had 9 months to do what it came to do. This is the story of what came home with the bed. Horicon, Wisconsin is the kind of small town that exists in thousands across the American Midwest. Population around 3,000, a historic downtown with a hardware store and a diner, and a church with a proper steeple. Surrounded by farmland and the Horicon Marsh, one of the largest freshwater marshes in the United States. Quiet, seasonal, the kind of place where people know each other, and Friday night means the high school basketball game. Alan and Deborah Tallman were exactly the kind of people Horicon was made for. Alan worked. Deborah raised the children and kept the house. They had 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son. They were practicing Christians, involved in their local church, known by neighbors as decent, hard-working people. Completely ordinary. And before the winter of 1987, their house on Larrabee Street had given them nothing but comfort. It was their dream home. In February of 1987, Deborah decided the girls needed more space in their room. The obvious solution was a bunk bed, and the obvious place to buy one without spending too much money was the local second-hand shop. She found one. It looked normal, a little worn, a little scratched, nothing unusual. Alan loaded it into the car. They brought it home. They set it up in the girls' room, and that night, their son, who had moved into a smaller room down the hall, lay in bed and watched something happen to his clock radio. The dial moved. Not dramatically, not all the way. It just moved, slowly, on its own. He told his parents the next morning. They didn't worry. Old radios do strange things sometimes. Children imagine things. It was just a clock radio. It was just the beginning. Alan Tallman was not a man known for imagination. Friends described him as practical, grounded, steady, the kind of man who solved problems instead of exaggerating them. One night in late 1987, Alan came home from work after midnight. The house was quiet. Deborah and the children were asleep. Alan walked through the house, checking doors and lights before heading into the garage. And in the garage, something was waiting for him. Alan later described seeing a figure, human in shape, but wrong. Wrong in a way he couldn't explain. The figure spoke to him, and according to Alan, it told him something that made one thing absolutely clear. His family needed to leave, immediately. Alan returned inside and sat in silence in his kitchen, unable to process what had just happened. Reverend Wayne Dobratz later said Allen's fear was unmistakable, not anxiety, not panic, real fear, the kind produced by real experience. The Reverend believed whatever was in the house had arrived with the bunk beds. The beds were moved into the basement, but the activity only intensified. The children grew more distressed. Deborah barely slept. Allen struggled to hold the family together. The Tallmans prayed. The house was blessed. Religious rituals were performed. Eventually, the bunk beds were removed from the house completely. But the house still felt wrong, as if something had already settled itself into the walls, because the beds had been there for 9 months, and 9 months was long enough. January 11th, 1988, middle of winter, below freezing outside. Something happened inside the Tallman house that night. The family never fully described it publicly, only that staying there became impossible. They grabbed their children. They didn't pack bags. They didn't turn off lights. They didn't lock the doors either. They left everything exactly as they were, and they never truly came back. Within days, rumors spread through Horicon. People drove past the house at night, hoping to see something. Police barricaded the street. Reporters arrived. Investigators arrived. The Tallmans turned down money from tabloids. They lost money abandoning the house. Nothing about their behavior suggested a hoax. Even the local police chief publicly stated he believed them. The bunk beds were eventually destroyed completely, buried in a private landfill. Their exact location was never revealed. And after leaving Horicon, the Tallmans reported that everything stopped. No voices, there were no cold spots, no figures. Nothing followed them. Whatever had been inside that house stayed there, apparently.
Allen and Deborah Tallman later said their lives eventually returned to normal. No more disturbances, no more fear. The house on Larrabee Street was eventually sold. Other families lived there. No further activity was ever reported. But the story remains one of the most disturbing paranormal cases in American history because of one simple detail. The haunting did not begin with the house. It began with an object, a used bunk bed, something ordinary, something harmless, something brought home from a secondhand store. And somewhere, right now, in a thrift shop, a garage sale, or sitting forgotten in someone's attic, there may be another object with a history nobody knows, waiting for someone to bring it home.